I'm going to begin. So we're looking at poultry. At any time during the session, if you wish to ask any question, you can message in the chat section, or you can simply put on your microphone and ask whatever question you have. So a basic introduction, poultry. Students are still coming in. All right, so poultry can be defined as species that are of economic importance to humans. When we are talking about economic importance, we're talking about selling these animal to make a profit. Economic mainly deals with selling things so that we make a profit. So poultry deals with those type of animal that we can consume, we can sell and make a profit. So they are reared mainly for their meat and their eggs mostly. And there are different classes of poultry. We can classify poultry as broilers, we can classify them as layers, and we can classify them as dual purpose. The broilers, these are reared mostly for their meat. So the main purpose of them is to get meat. I'll advise, if you have your microphone on, please take off your microphone unless you have a question. Yes, so layers, these are reared for their eggs mainly. And then we have dual purpose, and these are reared for both meat and their eggs. So this is basically introduction, and I'm giving you just a classification that you can use to place poultry in different groups. So poultry doesn't necessarily mean chicken. Poultry would involve ducks and turkeys as well, because those are of economic importance to humans. So we're going to look at the different classes of poultry. This is a different type of classification that we're going to look at. So on the left side, we have classes of poultry. We have chicken, we have ducks, and we have turkey. I hope everyone can see the screen clearly and can see the PowerPoint presentation clearly. If you're not, you can indicate to me. Someone's microphone is on, so I'm going to ask you to please mute your microphone, because it's going to give us a feedback here that we don't really want. All right. Again, you can only unmute your microphone if you have a question to ask. So in terms of chicken, we have different breed. The first one there we have is Creole, and I have an image of the Creole chicken so you can have an idea what it looks like. Type is dual purpose, meaning that it is used for both eggs and for both eggs and meat. Then we have the white leghorn. So that's how the white leghorn chicken will look like, and they are used for the eggs. Then we have Rhode Island red, and these are used for both meat and egg. We have the Plymouth Rock. They are used for meat. That's the Plymouth Rock. That's how it looks like. You may be familiar with some of these, but you may not know what the names were. So after today's lesson, you should be able to identify these within your yard if you're rearing these chicken or in your community. And then we have New Hampshire. These are raised mainly for their meat. For the ducks, we have three main breed of duck that we have in Guyana. We have the Peking duck, and these are the Peking duck. They are white in color, and they are reared mainly for their meat. Then we have the Muscovy, and this is what the Muscovy will look like. They're reared for their meat. And then we have the Indian runner, and these are mainly reared for their eggs. Then we have the turkey. We have Jersey Buff. It's a bit of a funny name. They're reared for their meat. And then we have the White Holland. These are reared for the meat. So what you need to remember from all of this is the breed and the purpose of them. That is the type. Whether they are used for meat or whether they are used for eggs or whether they're used for both purposes. Again, for those who came in late, dual purpose means that the poultry is reared for both eggs and meat. And then, well, some are reared for the eggs alone, and some are reared for the meat alone. So we're going to look at the rearing of chicken in particular for the rest of this lesson. Again, if you have on your microphone, I'm asking for you to silence your microphones because we're having a feedback here. All right, moving on. So the eggs produced are either fertile or infertile. The infertile eggs, the eggs that are not fertile, these are sold. So when you go and purchase a tray of egg and so forth, those are the infertile eggs. Those are sold and then they are consumed. And then we have the fertile eggs. The fertile eggs undergo what you call incubation. Incubation can be in two ways. It can be natural incubation, and we can have artificial incubation. Under natural incubation, a hen will sit with a small number of eggs. And this is something that you probably would notice already. You have a chicken, a hen, will sit with some of the eggs that she laid. And usually they do this in a dark area. They might find a dark area anywhere in your yard if you have chicken, or they might lay the eggs in a special coop. They will turn the egg. They will continuously turn the egg. And the reason why they will turn the egg is to ensure that the entire egg have some amount of warmth, because the chicken body, just like our body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius, the chicken body have a certain temperature, and the temperature will go on to the eggs. If the temperature is too low, well, then the egg will not develop properly. So they will turn the eggs, and after about 3 weeks, which will be 21 days, the eggs will hatch. So we're looking again, for those who came in late, we're looking at rearing of chickens here. They can be fertile or infertile eggs. They can produce fertile or infertile eggs. And the infertile eggs, these are the ones that we consume. We would not consume the fertile eggs. We will consume the infertile ones. And the fertile eggs, we place them in incubator. We incubate them. Sorry, some of you have on your audio, and again, you're giving me a feedback. I'm requesting that you silence the audio unless you have a question, because I will not be able to. It's very distracting. It's actually very distracting when you have on your audio. I have to move on here. So again, incubation, we have natural incubation. This is done by the hen by itself. And we have artificial incubation. Artificial incubation, this is done when baby chicks are needed in large quantities. So when people are going to purchase the baby chicks from the different outlets, for example, in Skellen, you have certain places, they are selling these baby chicks. So those baby chicks will not come from natural incubation. You will not have a hen sitting on those eggs and then the eggs will hatch. What you have is that you have a large amount of chickens being hatched in an incubator, and you may have hundreds or even thousands of eggs being incubated at once. So the fertile eggs are placed in an incubator. The temperature is usually constant. You keep the temperature at around 38 degrees Celsius. And the eggs are turned automatically. So inside of this incubator, the eggs will turn. The eggs will hatch after 21 days or 3 weeks, very similar to natural incubation. And the chicks, they are debeaked. Debeaked means that they would remove a section of their beak, and then they will vaccinate the chickens. And the reason for debeaking these chickens, these baby chicks, would be that as they grow, especially if the temperature is high in the surrounding, some of these baby chicks, they will pick or they will attack other baby chicks with their beaks. And that's called cannibalism. They will pick on the feathers of the other baby chicks. And they may cause bleeding, they may cause injury. And if the injury is too much, it can cause death to the baby chicks. So that's why debeaking would prevent this from happening. If you have any question, you can again type it in the chat section. and I'll pause and answer your questions. Or if you have any question at this moment, you can just put on your microphone and just indicate to me that you would like to ask a question. So to summarize what we've been looking at so far, we are looking at incubation. Incubation means that you're placing the egg for it to hatch. You have natural incubation, where you have a chicken, a hen, sitting on the egg, and the egg will eventually hatch. Then you have artificial incubation, where you can incubate about 1,000 of fertile eggs. For those who just joined, please ensure that you take off your microphone. So the eggs can be fertile or infertile, but how would you know if it's fertile? And how would you know if the egg is infertile? Well, the way in which you can know that is called candling. Candling, and the name candling comes from, when it was first known that you can determine the fertility or the infertility of an egg, they used candles. But candle can be any light source. So candling is when you use a light in a dark area. So it's a passing of light through the egg in a dark room so that inside of the egg can be seen. And you can probably try this at home. If you have an egg, go into a dark room, pass a light through it, and look at how the egg will look inside. So in fertile eggs, if the egg is fertile, you will see a network of blood vessels. For example, in the image that you see there, at the middle, you would see a thick clot of blood-like structure. That's the blood vessels, that's the embryo that is forming, that's a baby chick that is forming. And coming out of that, you may see some additional blood vessels. So that is the way in which you can determine whether an egg is fertile or if the egg is infertile. Brooding. That's the next topic or subtopic on the rearing of chickens. So this refers to the first 3 to 4 weeks of rearing the chickens where warmth is provided. So a certain amount of temperature is needed for the chicken to go healthy. Natural brooding, that is done by the hen, as shown in the diagram there. The hen will just sit with the baby chicks, and the warmth of the hen will go onto the baby chicks and allow the baby chicks to develop properly. And also then we have artificial brooding. So people who are selling what we normally call white chicken, people who are rearing these chicken will have to create an artificial brooding system. So an artificial brooding, an artificial source of light is provided. Example, an electrical bulb. Those bulbs that will provide heat, and those bulbs will be suspended above the baby chicks. Some people would use kerosene lamps as well. The kerosene lamp can be very dangerous depending on how well it is set up. So the temperature should remain around 38 degrees Celsius on day 1. So as soon as the eggs hatch, the temperature should be set at 38 degrees Celsius. And then later on, you try to drop that temperature to 28 degrees Celsius. So on day 1, it's 38 degrees Celsius. Then the light or the heat source will be moved upwards, and the temperature will gradually decrease. Most farmers, of course, will not. Someone is asking a question. Daniel, you may go ahead and unmute your mic if you have a question.
I'm sorry, sir. My hand mistaken thought something.
Okay, that's all right. Good. So the temperature should gradually be decreased so that the chicken can get accustomed to the normal temperature. So by the time the chicken gets big, you do not have to provide those heat source for them. Because going back, the eggs were first in the hen. And inside of the hen, the temperature was around 38 degrees Celsius. When the egg was hatched, it came out, the egg had to remain around 38 degrees Celsius when the hen sit on the egg to allow it to hatch. So to change the temperature from 38 degrees Celsius to 28 degrees Celsius, if you change it too quickly, it will affect the growth of the baby chicks. That is why it's advised that from 38 degrees Celsius, a day later, you decrease the temperature to 35, another day, a few days, you gradually decrease it until you reach around 28 degrees Celsius. And afterwards, the baby chicks will get accustomed to the different temperature of the surrounding. All right, something I want to also indicate here is that two things are needed, two things are especially needed when rearing baby chicks, and that's water. Some of you should be aware of these things because you may be rearing chicken in your homes. So you have a water. Obviously, the water is going to provide water to the baby chicks, and even as they grow up, they still need a source of water. So you have different sizes of water that can be used. And when we have the feeder, and as you can see here, the feeder is used to provide the feed. In terms of housing, there are certain requirements for proper housing of the baby chicks. It is recommended, it's not 100% necessary, it is recommended that a concrete floor be used, and the reason for a concrete floor is to allow easy cleaning. Some farmers, however, some farmers who rear chicken, they prefer a mud floor, and they claim that it is easier to clean using the mud floor because they will scoop up the dirt along with the droppings from the chicken. So if a concrete floor is used, a litter should be provided. And what is this litter? So litter is really a layer of substance that you put on the floor. For example, you may have wood shavings. So you put the wood shaving, so the baby chick will go on that wood shaving. You may add paddy husk, or you can add sand. Out of these, the wood shaving is preferable. And the reason for that is that it absorbs a lot of moisture very quickly. The litter should be changed regularly, especially when it is moist. So when the animal releases its waste, it should be changed. It should not be allowed to get wet, to get very damp, to get very moist, because when it is moist, it will allow the growth of fungus and other disease-causing organisms, and these diseases will affect the broilers that the farmer is rearing. So again, to summarize, litter is what you put on the concrete floor to allow the birds to walk upon. And it should be changed regularly. And the purpose of this is that the concrete floor might be too cold, and the coldness of the floor is going to affect the baby chicks. So the litter will prevent that problem. This is how a typical house of a poultry pen should look like. It should have sufficient ventilation. That is why at the sides it should have mesh. However, in the direction where there is wind and where there is rain coming in, that section should be covered. You should have a foot bath, and a foot bath can be placed in front of the pen. And the purpose of the foot bath is that when someone is going into the pen, they should wash their foot, because you might be walking around all over in the yard or any location, and your footwear may pick up disease-causing organisms, may pick up fungus and all kind of bacteria and so forth, and you don't want to take those organisms inside of the pen. So a small foot bath should be in front of the pen, and in that foot bath you put a disinfectant, maybe bleach can be used there. So you step on the foot bath, and then you enter into the poultry pen. It should be enclosed with brick walls at the side, as you can see in the diagram. And the brick walls is to contain the litter, or to prevent the litter that we talked about, to prevent the litter from coming outwards. You should have a slightly sloping floor, and that is to allow easy cleaning. So you can use a hose, a pipe, and that will allow you to clean the floor very easily. All right, so that brings us to the end of today's lesson. It was a short lesson, as most of our lessons, and in this lesson you should have a good idea on how chickens are reared. So if you have any question, you can now ask those questions in the chat section, or you can unmute your mic and ask whatever question that you have. One of the questions you may have in your mind, if you have to copy any notes, yes, the notes that you have on the slides, I would like you to copy them. So I will send you a copy of it. You will open the file, and you will copy all of the points that are mentioned in these slides. You'll copy it in your notebook. So I'm waiting for any question that you may have.